Okay, so here's what's happened with my propeller. The stuff on the back's held. Actually, I can't get it out anymore. Basically, the rivet came out, but I put a new one in, and I just need to put some stuff over the top. Smear some on the top. So what it's doing is putting an invisible sticky coat of this stuff, which stays flexible and rubber-like, even when it's dried. And that's enough. The one on the back hadn't come off. It just, I don't know whether I've missed one side or what, but that is the fix. This stuff, I still regard it as what we call silicon sealant over here, but it's really a slightly more high-tech version that's used to seal taps, plumbing fittings into basins and things like that for a waterproof, flexible joint. But ordinary silicon, stuff you use on roofs and gutters, works just fine. So once it's done, I'll just pop this off again and we're back in business. So it's a different prop from the first one that failed, so it's not like I'm repairing the same one all over again. So this is the way my jumper came with its 4 or 5 decibel gain antenna. I went out and bought for about, I think it was only $5 or $6. This one, which boosted up to 9 dBi gain and has a noticeable difference, more effective. And then the next thing I did was I bought a 2 watt booster. I also had to wait for it to arrive, and then once it arrived I could see what the thread was, because then the way they name threads is pretty bloody arbitrary, so you've actually got to look at SMA, what sort of SMA it is, and whether it's male or female, because say the standards are a bit bloody vague. Hang on, let's try and get this. I'm screwing it the wrong way, aren't I? No, I'm not. That's tightened it up. Yeah, so this one, which is taking me out as far as I've managed to go so far, which is about 320 metres, I should be able to go further. Also on the jumper I've got my RSI set for about 80, which is a bit low. This is a powered antenna, so I had to clip the wire. I had a battery that came with a radio controlled plane, so it's a 2S, fairly small, and I can plug these two things together and it works. Interestingly, if the battery's not plugged in, you can't even bind with a model. So normally I do those up tight with a spanner, but as I say, I'm thrilled with the versatility and effectiveness of what you can do with a jumper compared with a standard controller, now that it works with the Bugs family. This is the standard holder that comes with a Bugs 3, and over time what I've found out is that the rubber inside it gets a bit floppy. So this one I've taken apart and I've tightened it up, and I'm confident the next time I fly it I'll get a much more stable high resolution picture. Here's one I broke earlier, and numerous crashes. So what I've done, I've taken almost all the screws out. Just got one more to go. So taking this out, it's got it. I'll show you what's inside. So this is what you get. and it's got quite a detailed rubber damper there that you can pull out with enough effort. So that's what's in there to start with. So that shows the bits and pieces. What I did was I got some white foam that was used to pack a TX03 camera. So if you imagine, I got a much bigger block of this and I plopped it right in the middle so that it was big enough that it forced a bit more compression when I screwed the top back on. And I sincerely believe that's going to give me a nice stable camera mount back. As I say, they start off well, but over time they seem to, they ease off and you get a bit of vibration. Just wish I'd realised before my last flight. But that's life with FPV. I was pretty disappointed when I first saw the footage from the high-res camera, and at first I blamed the props. I thought maybe they're getting loose, but then I went back and looked at earlier footage using these green props, which had never given me any problems, and it was steady. So that's when I started thinking about the camera holder, gave it a wiggle and realised it had slackened off. So at first I wasn't going to use it, but then I thought, well, it was still a fun flight, so I'll put it together and put it out there. I've got mixed feelings about the folding props now because I've managed to lose 3 rivets so far, all from the white set of props on the black Bugs, and all fell out after crashes. However, it's never the same prop twice, and I'm slapping more sealant over the rivets when I replace them. So for the moment I'll persevere, but I guess I'm not in a position to recommend them to anybody who's not prepared to go through a few hassles. But I was really thrilled with the booster. At this point I'm getting out towards the 320 meter mark, and although I'm getting a range warning, I've got it set at 80 decibels, which I suspect is a bit low, because I didn't come close to feeling I was losing control at any point. But it certainly gives me a lot of confidence. The main problem I had flying was one of my batteries seems to be a bit dodgy, so I was getting battery warnings, and I've set my battery warning to go off at 7.5 volts, which is too low. And they tend to start dropping out of the sky, which is what happens at the end of this flight. So I've since ramped it up to 7.7 volts for my next flight, so I'll see how that goes. But overall I'm pretty happy with the way it's flying, and just with this little matter of damping the vibration down properly from a high-res camera, I may have succeeded in my aim of combining a fun sports flyer with adequate amateur photography. This just shows how far the guy mowing the reserve got the other day. That's why there's a line there. So I was hoping to go back and fly with the sorted camera holder on Sunday, but the weather hasn't really been good, so I had another look at this before throwing it all away and thought, well, I think it's good enough to put up there. It gives a bit of an idea of how well the Bugs is now flying with a jumper, particularly with boosted, where you don't have to worry too much about your range. But there's so many things to worry about now. It started off as a simple hobby, but I generally take 2 Bugs out there. They both got TX3 cameras on board, and they can hold a variety of cameras underneath. I've got an extra battery taped to the back of the jumper now to run the booster. And then you've got little things like checking whether your camera holders, whether the dampers need looking at, which is something that hadn't occurred to me. That was a magpie taking off there, in case you're wondering whether it was a rabbit. But there's all practice in a nice, wide open, well-maintained reserve where if the Bugs goes down, it's easy to retrieve it, particularly with an observer keeping an eye on it. And those little green things behind are little enclosures for trees. We're speculating they're planting them quite densely, They're mainly native trees, gum trees and similar, because it's probably a nursery. They're going to move them to somewhere else once they're established. But it's a fantastic place, and we don't see too many walkers. So we had a couple of a lady with a couple of large Great Danes come up and have a chat to us in a friendly sort of way earlier. They were big dogs, but very friendly. So it's only a mild wind. It's been the best weather for quite a while. So it's really great to get outdoors and have a bit of a fly, particularly not having to worry about things too much. So as I say, the only serious warnings we're getting from the Jumper was the battery, because I had 3 charged batteries, one of which had some kind of fault. It works okay with a balance lead, but the power's not coming out of the T connector I put on it. So I've simply changed it over and put it with my Aomway Commander V1 goggles, which use the balance port for power. So I'm finding I'm working really well with my mix and match batteries. All the batteries I use in the Bugs and the Jumper and the goggles, I've now changed them over to T connectors, which I think are far more reliable than and easier to disconnect than the XT30s that the gear came with. And about here I run out of battery. So I had enough time to get home and have a think about the camera holder. And here's the test.